See, God could have said, I am Yahweh, your creator. I own the cosmos. I have more power than 1,000,000 nuclear bombs, so you'd better knuckle under and worship me. He could have said that, but it's not what he says.
Welcome to Open the Bible with Pastor Colin Smith. I'm David Pick. I'm glad you could be with us today. And Colin, that's not what God said. So in fact, what did he say?
Yeah, he does not appeal to his people on the basis of power, but on the basis of love. And the point is he could come and simply say, look, I've got all the power, so you better submit. But what he says to his people is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. So he points to his redeeming love, to his goodness, and to his kindness. And of course, that takes us right into the New Testament, because these are not two different stories. The one leads to the other. And you know where this is going, that the reason that God appeals to us in Jesus Christ to lay down our lives and to follow him whatever the cost is that is precisely what he has done in unfathomable love for us in Jesus.
And when we realize that and appreciate the full extent of that, that will lead us to the beginning of our understanding of him, and our worship flows from that.
Yeah, that's right. And you see, I think there are an awful lot of people, and perhaps even as you're listening right now, you may say, this is me. I've heard lots of commandments. I've heard lots of calls to live this kind of life, and I ought to be this, and I should do that, and all the rest of it. But have you really felt the weight of the love of Jesus Christ? Have you really glimpsed the extent of his love for you as you see it in Jesus Christ hanging on the cross in order to redeem you, in order to save you? See, it's on the basis of that love that God comes with outstretched arms and appeals to us to come to him and to be his people and to enter into a life that is given for our good. That's the marvelous thing. There isn't a better life to live than this. The opposite of this life is a disaster in time, and it's worse in eternity. But here's the Redeemer who says, now come to me and follow me, and he appeals to us in love.
We're going to take time to look further into that. So join us if you can in the book of Exodus chapter 3 as we continue the message, Your Struggle with God. Here's Colin.
The Creator himself, who has all power and is accountable to and subject to nobody, does not make his appeal to you on the basis of raw power, like some dictator. But he comes to you and appeals as the gracious God who extends mercy towards you. Think about that. It's awesome. I am Yahweh, your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, he says to these folks. When you cried out, nobody else was listening, but I was. Nobody else saw a future for you, but I did. I came down to help you. And I didn't do it because there was some pressure on me coming from somewhere to do that. I did it because it pleased me. He's good. He's good. And you know, you will never be ready to embrace God fully until you've come to the conclusion that he's good. That's why knowing him through Jesus Christ, you see, is the very foundation of the commandments. It's the beginning of this struggle. It's where this whole life begins. We may submit to raw power, but we will never love raw power. That's why it's so significant that God brings us into a relationship of love. See, there is all the difference in the world. Think about this. There's all the difference in the world between a kidnapper and a lover. A kidnapper may say, you are mine, on the basis of power. But a lover says, you are mine, on the basis of affection. All the difference in the world. One writer, I think very provocatively, describes the 10 Commandments as pillow talk. Think about that. Pillow talk. Because we're light years away from the courtroom in which sterile power is exercised. We're in the intimacy of a love relationship in which Yahweh, who has come down and reached out to make us his own, says, "You're mine, and I want you to know me, and I want you to walk with me throughout the course of your life and to enter into all the goodness that I have planned for you." It's the talk of the lover who has won the affection of the loved and now embraces her and says, "You are mine." Why should we make Yahweh our God? Because he's God and because he's good. And of course, we see that even more clearly in Jesus. Because in the New Testament, the I am took flesh and came down to rescue us. That's what the coming of Jesus Christ is all about. That's why he says, "Before Abraham was, I am." That's why he says, "I am the bread of life." That's why he says, "I am the way and the truth and the life, and no one comes to know God the Father except by me." You had no way out of a future of hell itself, except that I came down and I gave myself for you. Let me introduce myself to you, he says, and he holds out his hands and there are nail prints in them. Why would I follow Jesus? Because he's God. Because he's good. He's Yahweh with us. That's a motivation. And if we're really going to get into this climb, it's very important that we've got it absolutely clear as to why we're doing it, because we're going to face some difficult struggles on this rock face. We need to know why we're climbing. Now, moving on, if that's your motivation, that we pursue this God because he is God and because he is good, then let's see, secondly, that our calling is to a life of loving loyalty. This God introduces himself, and now he says to us, "You shall have no other gods before me." Your calling and mine is to give ourselves to a life of loving loyalty to the God who loved us and gave himself for us. And of course, you will see then further that the first commandment is really a natural response of gratitude. It is gratitude to the grace of God in Jesus Christ that has come down and it's reached me. And therefore I respond and I say, how could I put anyone else or anything else in the place of you, O Lord? What does it mean in practice to keep the first commandment? Let me make 3 suggestions. First, it involves cultivating your affection for him. No other gods before me. That's going to mean thinking about him, remembering him, appreciating him, honoring him, choosing him, loving him, desiring him, fearing him. It's going to mean believing him. It's going to mean trusting him. It's going to mean hoping in him. It's going to mean delighting in him. It's going to mean being zealous for him. It's going to mean calling upon his name. It's going to mean giving thanks to him in all things. It means giving him more weight in your life than anything else. It means that if you face a decision in which every inclination of your heart is to say no, but honoring God means saying yes, that you say yes because honoring God counts more to you than every inclination of your heart. That's, of course, what thousands and thousands and thousands of Christians have done when they've gone to prison and sometimes died for the sake of the name of Jesus. They're living the first commandment. Cultivate your affection for him. That's why we gather here in worship. Because as in any relationship of love, that needs to be renewed and replenished. And in the place of worship, my love for him is strengthened. Second, it means turning from all that offends him. Now, I found it helpful to identify some of the sins that break the first commandment. because they displace God. You see, anything that puts someone or something else on the throne of my life, puts them in a controlling position, breaks the first commandment, because God alone belongs there. You shall have no other gods before me. So here would be some things that were sins that break the first commandment. Number 1, pride. That puts me on the throne, doesn't it? Hero worship. Infatuations. Allowing other people to bind your conscience and manipulate you so that you no longer think for yourself. Consulting the devil, mediums, spiritists or fortune tellers, superstition. It seems to look for another power to guide me in what's going to work out for me today. Impatience with God, which means I want something that he's not yet given more than I want himself. Complaining about his providence. Teaching or believing that all religions lead to God, which is a way of saying that all gods are the same and putting them all on the same level. Unbelief, distrust, or despair. You say, despair? How can you despair if the Lord is your God? See, despair always arises when there's something else that I want, and I've decided that I won't get it. And what that means is, if I despair, that I've put that thing that I wanted and I've decided I won't get in the place of God, and therefore I despair because I'm not getting it. I have to tell you, the more I've thought about this, the more I've seen that this first commandment is absolutely liberating. Some of us desperately need to be released from infatuations, from relationships in which some other person is controlling and manipulating. This will deliver you from the overbearing parent, from the dominating friend, from the manipulative religious leader. This is the very basis of our rejection of tyranny. No other gods before me. This, therefore, is the very foundation of freedom. And our country wants to move away from it. See, the values and the blessings we enjoy come from somewhere, and they're rooted right here in the first commandment. And why would we embrace this God? Because he's God and because he's good, and every good that we enjoy comes from him.
You're listening to Open the Bible with Pastor Colin Smith and a message called Your Struggle with God, part of our series, The 10 Greatest Struggles of Your Life. Don't forget, if you ever miss one of the series, you can always catch up or go back and listen again online. Come to our website, openthebible.org.uk, or follow us on your favourite podcast site by searching for Open the Bible UK, or indeed follow the link from our website. Open the Bible is supported by our listeners, and later in the programme I'll be talking to Open the Bible's Amanda Cunningham about our special offer this month, so I hope you'll stay with us for that. Back to the message now. We're in Exodus chapter 3. Here's Colin.
You shall have no other gods before me. It's going to mean cultivating our affection for him. It's going to mean turning away from all that offends him. Thirdly, it's going to mean subjecting everything to him. You shall have no other gods before me. You say, well, what other gods? I mean, the stuff about the history of world religion is all very interesting, and we can see its application across the scene of the world today, but frankly, we're here because we're Christians. None of us are going to have a secret worship session for Baal or Marduk or any other god this week. Well, there are plenty of other gods. Plenty of other powers that can be placed on the throne of your life. Dr. Jim Packer makes some suggestions, and noticing that God is a trinity, a triunity of persons, he suggests some other trinities that vie to take his place. Here are 3. Sex, shekels, and stomach. The unholy trinity, he says. Pleasure, possessions, position. Football, the firm, and the family. There's a few trinities there that vie for the place of God in our lives. Let me ask this question. What dominates your thoughts, your goals, and your conversation? What really is the first love of your life? What is the biggest affection of your heart? That is your God. Now, as you think through Packer's examples, sex, shekels, stomach, pleasure, possessions, position, football, the firm, and the family, every one of these is a good gift from God. Every one of them. The problem for us arises when we take the gifts and we put the gifts in the place of the giver. That is idolatry. To boil this down, I was very moved earlier this summer when our high school ministry had a farewell for seniors. And we were treated in the course of a marvelous evening to a video in which we saw pictures of each of the seniors who were graduating from high school this summer, along with a note about their favorite memory and what they would like written as their epitaph. And as you can imagine, there were some very funny ones. There were some very good ones. There was one that I will never forget. It was written by one of our students now at college who achieved outstanding success as a senior in his high school football team. And this is what he suggested for his epitaph. Football was his game. It wasn't his life. I think that is brilliant from an 18-year-old. And it came from a lad who's trying to live the first commandment. And it's a struggle. He's climbing the wall. He's faced all kinds of pressures. And some of us as parents have had to make tough decisions, frankly, in this sphere, have we not? We've had to sit down with our kids and work out what really matters as a primary value in our life. And where is the place of God fitted into the agenda? Or is he to be on the throne of our lives? And sometimes that struggle is harder for the parents than for the kids. You shall have no other gods before me. So now we're going to come to the challenge in these last moments. Your challenge is to embrace him unconditionally. You shall have no other gods before me. Now this is where we come to a step of faith. A step of faith that God invites every one of us to take on the basis of trust. He's God, he's good. Are you ready to embrace him today unconditionally? That's the question. Rather like the marriage service, God invites us to commit ourselves to him for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, and forsaking all other, to cling only to him, not until death parts us, but until death brings us into his immediate presence. By the way, it is a wonderful foundation for marriage if you will make that kind of commitment to God. Now, I ask you to think about this. If you can't make that kind of unconditional commitment to God, how are you going to sustain an unconditional commitment to anyone else? You see, if we lose the capacity of unconditional commitment here, it will not exist anywhere else. Of course. People who want negotiated contracts with God want negotiated contracts with everyone else. This is a step of commitment based on trust. And that's what faith is. Trust of someone you've come to know to be God and to be good. Sometimes when my wife has come home with a surprise, some kind of gift or something, she said to me on occasion, "Close your eyes and hold out your hand." Now I ask you, close your eyes and hold out your hand. I mean, this makes me vulnerable. But I do it. If a stranger in Chicago came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, close your eyes and hold out your hand," do you think I'd do it? Not a chance. When Jesus said to the first disciples, "Follow me," not one of them knew where it was leading. And frankly, when Jesus says to you, "Follow me," you don't know either. You don't know what kind of scrapes you're going to get into, what kind of challenges and decisions you're going to have to face, what kind of sacrifices you're going to make. You commit yourself unconditionally to him. You might end up the other side of the world. You may end up with some tough scrapes. It may cost you your life. But God is calling you and me to a commitment that is based on trust. Because you know that he's God and because you know that he's good. And that's faith. You shall have no other gods before me. Your challenge is to embrace God unconditionally. No ifs, no buts, no whens. Because if you put an if, a but, or a when in there, you have put the if, but, or when in the place of God. If you say, yes, if you give me my health, you've put your health in the place of God. If you say, yes, if you bless my family, you put your family in the place of God. If you say, yes, when I've resolved this problem that I'm struggling on, you put the problem in the place of God. So do you see why the first commandment is such a struggle? Boy, the more I've looked at it, the more deeply convinced I've become. This is a lifelong struggle, and it's much harder than I thought. You can look at a cliff face from a distance and say, you know, I could climb that. But boy, when you get up close to the first commandment, you realize it's much tougher than you ever thought. And so it won't be long when you get to this first commandment before you're saying, you know, we just started and I'm not for one. And I'm going to need a little bit of help. And it's right there that we reach out to Jesus. I need help, Jesus. Deliver me. Save me. That's a great way to come to him. Ask him to create a new and intense love for God within you. And then you'll be able to pray like this: the dearest idol I have known, whate'er that idol be, help me to take it from your throne and worship only thee.
You've been listening to Open the Bible with Pastor Colin Smith and our message called Your Struggle with God. It's part of our series, The 10 Greatest Struggles of Your Life, our look at the 10 Commandments and why they're relevant to our lives today. If you've missed any of the series, or if you want to go back and listen again, you can always do that by coming online to our website, openthebible.org.uk, or you can find us as a podcast on your favourite podcast site, search for Open the Bible UK, or follow the link from our website. Open the Bible is supported entirely financially by our listeners, and we're extremely grateful for the support that you give us. If you've been thinking about supporting us in that way, and you'd like to begin a new direct debit to the work of Open the Bible this month in the amount of £5 per month or more, or a one-off gift of £50 or more, we'd love to thank you by sending you a copy of a book by Colin called Drive Through the Bible. It's a 30-day journey through the Bible. Here's Open the Bible's Amanda Cunningham to tell you about it.
Hi David, thanks for having me. Yes, in May, we are really excited to be giving away a brand new book by Colin Smith called Drive Through the Bible. Some of your listeners might already be familiar with Fly Through the Bible, our book and video course, which was 15 chapters taking you through the Bible narrative. Well, Drive Through the Bible follows on from that. It's a 30-day journey of just 5 minutes per day, exploring the landscape of the entire Bible story. It brings you into the valleys of the Old Testament with chapters such as curse, covenant, and chaos. It then moves on to the peaks of the glory of Jesus as we look at how he suffered, rose, and is now waiting. And finally, the ups and downs of the Christian life with chapters such as conflict, joy, and death. It also includes a short study guide at the back of the book to help you apply the truths that you've learned. You can use the questions on your own or as part of a study group, sharing the 30-day journey together. We are giving you this book for free in May when you set up a new direct debit of at least £5 or give a one-off gift of at least £50.
Thanks, Amanda. So, Drive Through the Bible is our gift to you for setting up a new direct debit this month to the work of Open the Bible. Full terms and conditions are on our website, and you can give online. For Open the Bible and Pastor Colin Smith, I'm David Pick, and I hope you'll join us again next time. Many people say that they find icons or images of Jesus helpful. Find out why these things always obscure more than they reveal. That's next time on Open the Bible.